And we are back with another episode of At the Table with CAHSAH, presented by California Association for Health Services at Home, with support from CAHSAH. CAHSAH is a leading global technology platform for healthcare at home, empowering more than 9,000 organizations to deliver care to over 5 million patients worldwide. Check them out at CAHSAH.com. Okay. My name is Mark Wilson, by the way, and before I introduce you to our guest on today's podcast, let me just kind of set the stage here for today. I know this has been said before, we say it often, but this is not an easy time to be in home-based care in California. Regulations are shifting. Certainly scrutiny is continuing to rise. Reimbursement pressures are always there. But here's the real question for the day. And I get this question a lot from providers, and I have for many years. What separates the providers who survive and thrive from the rest of the pack? And I think what I'm learning, and maybe you're learning too, is that it's not necessarily the size of your organization. It's not where you are geographically in California, and it's definitely not luck. I think what I'm learning is it's what they know and how fast they act on it. Because in today's environment, education isn't just a nice thing to have. It's not just the CEUs. It's not just checking the compliance box. It's how you protect your agency. It's how you lead your team. And I think in many ways, how you stay ahead of regulators instead of having to react to them all the time. So today, I'm really happy to have this guest with us at the table. She's someone who lives this kind of stuff every day, someone who's shaping how providers across California think, how they learn, and how they lead. So joining me at the table is Sina Tate. She's the Director of Education at California Association for Health Services at Home. Sina leads the charge on developing the programs, the training, the insights that help agencies not just stay compliant, but stay competitive. Sina, welcome to the table, my friend.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me. It's definitely an honor.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're with us today. So let's really get started here. When you look at the landscape right now in California, kind of set the stage for us. What are providers really up against?
Absolutely. And I like what you just said earlier about where education is and where provider is right now, their biggest challenge. And I believe that knowledge is power, and that's where education comes into. And it's no longer about checking the box for compliance, and instead it's really staying proactive and being ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So for providers really is to be cutting edge and to be prepared is no longer where they feel like education is a luxury, something that they should, want, but it's actually more of a necessity, where it's a need.
Right.
Right now, with everything that's going on, if providers are not getting ahead of what's going on and not assessing the organization to see where they're at, I think they're going to miss what's happening, and they may be falling behind, and they may get themselves into a situation that they don't want to be in.
Right.
Which already have heard many of our providers and not even members of CAHSAH are facing that as we speak.
I know you're in this field every day, working with people every day. If I'm an operator listening right now, where do you think they're generally most exposed?
Absolutely. Most agencies are exposed in compliance, leadership development, workforce management, documentation, and reimbursement. Even small gaps in training can lead to survey deficiencies, denied claims, staffing challenges, legal risk, and reduced quality coverage, just to name a few.
It's interesting. I in one of the podcasts that we did, Sue Vang, CAHSAH CEO, was talking about the fact that there are, particularly in hospice right now, there are those that are out there that are defrauding the government intentionally. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it on purpose. And there are, believe it or not, many providers out there who are just making errors in their day-to-day work, and they don't know it, and they're not trying to defraud anybody. They don't know. And I have a quick story for you because I think it demonstrates exactly what I'm talking about. I was at a speaking at a conference. Was it last year? Last year, a couple years ago. And this kind of thing has happened to me before. It was not in California, by the way. It was another state, and I was doing a session on sales and marketing. And afterwards, I had a couple of nice people come up to me. They were from the same hospice, and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, one of them was the owner. But they went on to explain to me that with their account executive, their salesperson, they were explaining how they compensated them, and they said, "Well, we give our salespeople $2,800 per referral, and then they go out and they give half of that to the referral source."
Hmm.
And everything went into slow motion, and they said it with a straight face. And I knew immediately that they had no idea that that kind of thing is not allowed. And I think that demonstrates the importance of
That's
making
right.
sure you get good education. And it's
That's
not just
right.
about compliance, it's about a whole wide spectrum of things, right?
That's right. That's right. And I do believe that when people know better, they do better. Not to say that we don't have bad actors out there, we absolutely do.
And we want to get rid
But
of them.
for
We want
those
them out.
right.
And we invite that kind of scrutiny, right?
Absolutely, for the bad actors. But we do have our providers who are genuinely, really caring for the patients and doing what's right. However, again, it goes back to education is power, knowing better, doing better. When you don't know better, how can you do better? And this is where education do come in, where it is essential, is no more of just a luxury. And I want to speak to all the providers out there that now to shift that kind of the mindset instead of looking at education as an expense, they should look at it as an investment in their staff and regulatories, so that staff can do better because they do know better.
I wonder if you could speak to this too. I know a lot of organizations sometimes fall short because they consume information, but they don't necessarily act on it. Can you help us? How is CASA working with people to sort of execute on those things?
Absolutely, I think when people feel pressured, um, and I think from staff, I think where it starts is leadership investing in staff and really making the staff feel like they are valued. When you feel valued, you want to do better, on the job. So I think for us, with what CASA is doing, not only we're providing education, we're leading, the charge and policy, but working with leaders, providing training to bridge that gap between leadership and staff. Like, what does
Right.
that gap look like? And we're asking the leaders in the association or the organization to take an assessment and, take a beat, but also test the pulse of your organization. Is there a gap in communication? And there is. What can they do? We have training that talks about how to connect with your staff and how to build value, how to create succession plan. But not only that, we have workshops, on hands workshop. But a lot of our training is applicable, something, information that they can apply. Right when they get back to their day to day or their organization and what they need to do. So instead of feeling the pressure of having to do something, creating an environment where staff is feeling uh, valued and happy going into work, but also understanding that, hey, the better the education, the better I'll do. And there's also the upward mobility that the organization can create, that staff can get promoted or get a raise. I think creating that environment where staff can feel like they're a part of the organization is a huge difference.
So tell us. I mean, you deal with a lot of providers on a regular basis. What are the most in demand topics right now? Do you
Medicare
know?
reimbursement, Medicare reimbursements,
How do I get paid?
regulatories. I want to say everything, to be honest, because you can't pick and choose what's important, right? This is where education, again, I keep going back to that, come into play. It's setting yourself up to be proactive and not reactive. So
Right.
investing in your leadership, investing in your clinical staff, investing in training where staff feel comfortable and confident in documentation, and how to care for patient properly, in orientation or onboarding and admissions of the patients. I think it all kind of ties in together. So whether you're C-suite executive to clinical staff, the investment to me remains the same in education.
Well, and we don't normally do this because we don't want this podcast to be a CAHSAH marketing thing. This really is designed to talk about what providers are really dealing with on a day-to-day basis. But let's break the rules here for a minute. Let's talk about what CAHSAH is offering up, because there's so much that you all do. Um, in addition, I've been in home-based care for almost 2 decades, and to be honest, CASA to me was kind of that thing that I went to every year, the annual conference, because I was in business development and not necessarily in the, day-to-day clinical operations type thing. So that's what CASA sort of was to me, but it's so much more when you dig down. So can you get into a little bit of that, the very specific things that CASA offers?
Yes. So part of what we offer is the core compliance and regulatory training, such as like our OASIS blueprint. Now we have our HOPE training coming up in June, but we also have our certificate workshop where we train the managers and then our administrator in what they do. So I think we cover from from administrator to clinical staff and everything else in between, that will provide just various different types of education knowledge for everybody to do their job and do it well. And then just the different platforms that we offer. We have our in person, which we know after COVID is so essential. We kind of lost that component for a while when we were like all shut in with
Yeah.
COVID and then 6 feet apart from each other. Coming back in person to me is so essential. It's always I'm a people person, and I learn better when I'm up front in center, being engaged and being active. But we understand that scheduling and time doesn't always permit for everyone to come out to the in-person training. So we have our webinars that we do throughout the month as well that we offer, and then our on demand. So if you miss the webinars and you miss the in-person training, we do have on demand that our members and non-members that can sign up for, and they can take it at the comfort of their own office, from their own home, in the car. So we try to make it very easy and palatable for our providers and members to sign up and learn and take whatever classes that they want, whatever the needs are.
Yeah, that's what I actually kind of dig about the current, what we call CASA 3.0.
Yes.
Um, it's just this increased uh, engagement, all these different things that the organization is doing to really create a two-way communication between providers and CASA as an organization so that we're not in silos. I think that's so important. And like I said, one of the things that I love about CASA 3.0. Listen, before we go any further, I want to take just a moment to acknowledge and thank our presenting sponsor, Access, for their leadership and support of California's home care community. When it's about utilization, compliance, and managing care in real time, you can't execute on any of this without the right infrastructure, and that's where Access really stands out. With more than 9,000 organizations using Access to care for over 5 million patients, and certifications like High Trust and CHAP Verified, you're not just guessing, folks. You're operating with confidence. So if you're serious about adapting to where home health is going, where is it going anyway? That's my next question for you. If you're serious about adapting to where home health is going, Access should definitely be a part of that conversation. You can get more at access.com. So, Sina, where is home care going? Do we know?
One thing that I was kind of thinking about, with the suspension notice that some of our providers are receiving, It leads to this question that I kind of been pondering about is sometimes we think no news is good news and that staying silent and staying off the radar is the way to go. And I beg to differ. I believe that home care should be proactive in everything that they do, whether it's in education, in regulatory, in training, in policy. I think being active is so essential. And that's why with our 60 for 60, we're calling out to all the providers. It's a partnership. CAHSAH can't do it alone. We need to partner. We need to come together and be loud about what we want. Be loud about the things that are essential. Be loud about the things that are important.
Yeah.
So saying silent is not no news is not good news anymore. I don't believe that.
Well,
So
that
getting
was
ahead of everything, you
yeah,
know,
that was the subject of one of our podcasts. Is that if you don't control the narrative, somebody else is.
that's
And right
right.
now, for a lot of hospice providers, news media is controlling that narrative. And if you're staying silent, you know, it ain't going to change unless you get in there and use your voice. And
That's
you
right.
can do it in your own communities, but you can also do it. Again, this is going to sound like a marketing piece for CAHSAH, but you could do it by joining an organization like CAHSAH and combine your voices into one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's do this for a second. Let's talk about workforce and how education can play a role in retention. I know, I haven't talked to a single person who said, "Oh yeah, we got plenty of people," right?
That's right.
So can you speak to that? Just how education can play a role in that?
Yeah, and it goes again back to education is no longer a choice. It's essential. With workforce, I hear a lot about there's a workforce shortage, across the continuum of home care.
Yeah,
With as medical assistants, CNAs, LVNs. There's a shortage of it. Baby boomers are retiring every single day, but we're not hiring enough. And honestly, for me, and this is just a personal belief, is going back to, do staff really feel valued? Do staff really feel like they're making a difference? There are a few who does show up just for a paycheck, but I want to believe the good in the world that there's a lot of us still that show up and really want to make a difference in someone's life. With home care, that's what they do. That's what we do.
yeah.
We show up day in and day out for what? It's because we have passion and compassion for the patients that, we care for our, providers care for. So creating the environment for staff to feel supported, to feel valued, and having, a, I don't want to call it a succession plan, but more of like, I can't think of the word right now, opportunities, for them to get more education, for more knowledge, for promotion, to expand what they can do. The opportunity is endless. I think when they do start to feel that, you will see, not only that they start to feel better about themselves, but in their work and how they care for their patients, that all will translate to, happy employee, happy patients, better organization, stronger, and they won't leave. They have no reason to leave. They feel supported and they feel valued.
Yeah, if you're educating me, you're helping me to grow. And I would be a lot more loyal, I'm sure. So, okay, good. I'm going to ask you one more question before we end today's podcast. Do you think let me see. What are there future trends that providers aren't ready for? And I guess maybe I just asked the same question, like what's in the future?
Gosh, with where AI is going, we don't, none of us are ready for AI.
Does it
From
scare
where
you?
it started,
Does it scare you? Does AI scare you?
I think it's only scary again if you're falling behind. But if
Mhm.
you're staying current and understanding where it's going, but also learning how to incorporate that in what you're already doing, AI can be a really great tool. And that's something that CASA is definitely looking into, is incorporating AI in education. And we're looking to ways and how will that help our providers to provide better care, to take care better of their, to better care for their staff, to provide better education. How does AI play into all that? So that's what we're really looking at right now. And the reason I say AI is because it's in our face every single day. You turn on your computer, it's AI. You turn on your phone, it's AI. So we have to start incorporating and embracing AI into our day to day in order for us not to fall behind, so that we could be ahead of the trend.
Yeah, and I have some thoughts on it myself because there's certain things about AI that honestly scare me, and then I look at it and I say, well, you know what? If AI can help providers be more efficient in
Yes.
whether it be regulatory things or compliance stuff, eh, then that's efficient and that's good for the bottom line, and that's at the end of the day, it's good for patients.
Yes.
At the same time, we work in that one-to-one kind of situation. AI can't comfort a patient just yet.
That's
And
right.
maybe that's in the future somewhere, but that personal touch, that in the room, sitting with someone, just being with them, um, I don't see that ever changing. So I think there's always going to be a role for people,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
we shouldn't be afraid of artificial intelligence.
Agreed.
I'm glad, because I wouldn't want to debate you. You're a lot smarter than me. Listen, we got to wrap it up. And if you got value from this conversation, and hopefully you did, share it with someone on your team, because this isn't just leadership level type thinking. I think this is organization wide survival and growth, and sharing it with your team is important. You have been listening to At the Table with CAHSAH, the podcast positioning home care at the heart of healthcare, available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or you can just go to CAHSAH.org. And thank you, Sina, for joining us today. It was great
You're
talking
welcome.
with you. And we'll see you at the conference, right? Conference is coming up real soon.
That's right. Our conference, yes, at the Westin Rancho Mirage on June 22nd to the 25th. You definitely don't want to miss that. We have a lot of different education programs that are ready um, in place, and we have our full schedule out. So
Yeah.
registration's open as
And
well.
it's a blast. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, and that's part of one of our strategic plan is to add fun back into it. And it's been fun. It's been
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm not speaking this year. Nobody asked me to participate, to disseminate my knowledge and experience, but that's okay. I'm just kidding. Anyway, Sienna, thank you for joining us. And thank you again to our sponsor, CAHSAH, for supporting conversations like this that move home-based care forward in California. My name is Mark Wilson, and we'll see you next time.